the group committed to reviewing the tree ordinance. We talked about reviewing the tree ordinance. It is part of its recommendation in the matrix. So we're kind of working to convert a orange tablet to an orange tile to green and do what was recommended in that matrix. And it's also, I think, just a good process to occasionally kind of review these things. And I will say that for a long time, for many years, the tree ordinance would get reviewed frequently. You know, it was a thing where people would see a tree get removed in their neighborhood. They'd bring it up to the community. It would kind of start a conversation. And I think that happened for a lot of years, for a while. And I guess from my perspective, and I may be a little bit removed from it now, but I do feel like I don't hear the level of complaints or the level of concern about it today that I used to. So that's not that it's great, but it is something that we don't hear a lot of kind of negative feedback and pushback on. I think I would at a high level classify it as an ordinance that I think of as being pretty tight compared to our neighbors. But at the same time, there are what I would call kind of reasonable conditions that would allow an owner to remove it. Some communities, you know, if it's under what I would say is a pretty big threshold, if it's less than 24, 26 inches, you can just remove it without really any reason. And to go through kind of at a high level how our tree ordinance works is in the definition section. It basically classifies everything but a tree, everything as a tree that is woody and has a diameter of wider than 8 inches at your chest height. So, you know, a tree of kind of this magnitude, except for pine trees and invasive species. So if it is either a pine or an invasive species, and that we reference the Clemson Extension list of pest invasive species, or it is less than 8 inches, it's exempted. So that comes up a lot. And if you look actually at our matrix, it talks specifically about pine trees and it talks about myrtles. And from my experience, I don't know that we've ever had a myrtle that had a single trunk at 4.5 feet off the ground that was more than 8 inches. So I'm unaware of a myrtle ever being protected. So that was in the matrix. I don't know if that was an intentional request of the commission to look at pines and myrtles because they are, you know, they're native, but we don't protect them. So anything woody.
Where is the definitions?
The definitions.
Where do they fall?
It's in the beginning of Article 3, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
We do have.
It's not in
we do
here.
have
Yes, I'm
internet.
sorry.
Or chapter 4, whatever.
I'm
No,
sorry.
It's not in here at all.
That's correct. It is. So the zoning code, it's an excellent point. I should have included in the packet the definition section. That is the
Okay.
front end of the zoning code. And I'll make a note to do that next time.
Yeah, just because I had several questions about.
What is a tree?
Did we get rid of that or did we get rid of the
Yes.
8 inch?
No, that's in the definition
Okay.
section.
Okay.
Bill, I don't know, and your email was not in the packet, but I don't know if it included the definition section.
I didn't.
You did
I
not
did
in
not.
yours either. Okay. So yes, it's in the definition section, the very front of the zoning code, and I will provide that to everybody because it's an important part. It specifically really defines again that it's, and it has a definition for a tree, then has a definition for a significant tree, and a definition for a historic tree.
It's
So
a definition for every other thing in this.
yeah,
It's
yes,
the
it's the
Oxford
glossary.
Dictionary.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
all of the defined codes. I mean, the defined terms in the zoning code.
Good, so historic's covered too and significant.
Historic and so I'll just talk through because it gets a little bit jumbled. But a significant tree is anything other than those species and those sizes that we talked about. That is between, if you are a live oak, you're significant between 8 and 16. And then for a live oak, anything above 16 is in the historic category. and you have to have the definitions to kind of, and we, for any other species that's protected, it is from 8 to 24 is significant, and then above 24 for other species is historic.
Except pine.
Except those that are invasive, pine or pines. That's correct. And then, so those trees are all protected. I would say if you are in a protected category, there's a number of reasons when you can remove a tree. The most common that we deal with are that they are in bad shape. I do think that Hugo did a lot of damage to our trees, and we're at a time where, something broke out of a tree 40 years ago. It's now been kind of working on that open wood for a long time, and we have these trees that you might look decent, but they have massive hollows in them. So that's probably the most common one that we deal with.
Is that hazardous?
That's a hazardous tree.
Yeah.
And for a hazardous tree, we have the tree ordinance really puts the onus on the owner to engage an arborist, and that arborist has to provide us with documentation that it meets our definition of posing an imminent threat to life or property. So that's kind of the language in our office that we're looking for and reviewing against. We get a lot of letters that say, hey, this tree isn't great. Or this tree is, not convenient because of its placement adjacent to the pool. None of that cuts it. If it's a hazardous tree, and that's the rationale, a certified arborist has to indicate to us in writing that it poses an imminent threat. Kind of thought there, and honestly, it is not the honor system, because these are certified arborists. They have a certification that they're required to keep continuing eds on, education credits and everything else. But I will say we get a pretty wide variations of opinions. I think we have had some historically that we trust more than others. We have tried to, Matt Sims, the prior zoning administrator, went through the process to be a certified arborist so that he could kind of be in a good position to fend a bogus letter condemning a tree. And I'll say that happens one in 10 times, I would say, is my kind of guess of.
That's surprisingly low. I thought it'd be higher.
Yeah. I mean, I think that generally that group takes that certification pretty seriously. Now there are a ton of tree companies, not a certified arborist, that will say, yeah, we'd love to take your tree out. Doesn't have any, and they're angling to take it out. But by and large, the arborist community is we find pretty, we see eye to eye with them more often than not. So hazardous is a big one that we deal with. Another situation that we deal with is if it is keeping you from making an improvement to your property. I will say, in my opinion, the code is pretty generous when it is a significant tree. So if you want to do something that requires a building permit, so that kind of catch takes away things like a fence doesn't require a building permit. So if you came to us and said, I want to remove this tree to build a fence, we would say a fence is not a structure that meets the criteria for warranting the removal. So we wouldn't allow you to do that. But if you came to us and you said, I want to build a bedroom, I want to build an addition, I want to build a garage, and you can show that there's not a reasonable alternative, you can't just shift it a few feet, we will generally allow you to remove significant trees. So again, that's live oaks 8 to 16 or other species 8 to 24. And then when you get into the
What
historic,
about a deck? What if you wanted to expand your deck? Does
You- we would allow that. We generally would allow for a significant tree.
Yeah, okay.
The threshold then goes if you have a tree that is in the historic category. So these are live oaks larger than 16, other species larger than 24. You have to show proof that you can't reasonably use your property without removing it. So it gets to be a very heavy lift from a regulation standpoint for historic trees. And we've had people go to such lengths as here in the last 10 or 15 years, we've had people, I would say a little bit of the gray area that we've had is people not removing trees, but moving trees. We've allowed people to, and we've only allowed one, maybe two companies do it where they cut a moat at the drip line. They put hydraulic bladders under there. They elevate it up and they roll the entire kind of drip line over and put it down. So we've allowed that, and there was a time when nobody would have done that because it's cost prohibitive. I think it's $150,000 per tree
Holy
to do that. So not a lot of people do it, but on certain lots, that tree, obscures the building envelope enough that, it kind of takes away that $1 million view. It does something. And in their analysis, it makes sense to move that tree. So we've allowed that to happen for historic trees to allow you to build a more rectangular house plan if you chose to. So I think at a high level, that's kind of our tree ordinance in a nutshell. Again, I don't know of. I think we're accused of it being overkill more often than we're accused of it being too lenient. Would be kind of a general characterization.
Is the moving of a tree, I didn't see it in here either, so.
Yeah, that is very much that's not discussed in the code. That's purely interpretation. The case was made to us. We do not want to remove the tree. We don't want to cut the tree down. We just want to move the tree, relocate it. And we've been okay with that. And I will say it's worked well. The trees I think we have lost one. I would say 20 have been moved. Of the 20 that were moved, we've lost one. All of the
20 historic trees.
Yeah.
It's pretty,
Maybe-
it's a pretty significant investment.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know one,
But
I
if it
didn't know
increases
20,
the
but-
value of your property, it's,
Yeah, the village has moved 8, something like 8, and they actually moved them twice. They took them from the middle of that site,
Yeah.
put them over to the side, built a new area, watered them the entire construction, got everything finished, and then moved them back, and they did well.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Bill, you want to go through? I think Bill provided some comments, and
I didn't know what was broken, so I just I literally shoved it into ChatGPT to see what it would say. It told their conflicts and redundancies, and it gave some responses, and I kind of set that aside and did my own thing. And I guess I kind of looked at it from how would I cheat it if I was a homeowner trying to do something, and so the general questions I had were I put at the top here. What is is cutting and pruning defined somewhere? I didn't know what cutting meant. I might have figured it out by the end, but I didn't know what cutting actually meant and what the difference between cutting and pruning was. So some clarity there might be needed. I found the pruning standard was referenced, which is ANSI 300, which is a 16-page document you have to purchase. And I imagine the arborists, I'm sure, have it in their hip pocket, but a homeowner would not be. It'd be hard to find, and it'd be almost impossible to interpret. Probably
So,
apply.
well, you
so
would
if
hope
you
that
cite
that-
it,
What's that?
if you cite it in a code or the ordinance, shouldn't you be able to provide it?
It's copyrighted material, and they sell it.
Well,
And
I
make
was
money
going to
from
say
it.
that maybe
yeah, building codes are the same way. I will say that
was gonna say.
we have it. We freely distribute it. Might be infringing on a copyright, but we do.
You
We
let
have a
people view
PDF. We let people view it in their own
Right.
inbox.
Copy, reproduce,
Right.
fold
Right.
down,
Don't do that.
spindle, mutilate.
I mean, I remember buying, the building code, the huge book from North Carolina, but,
Same thing. It's the same, or it's only, but it's smaller. Anyway, I thought that was just an impression I had. And then, and again, I didn't know what was broken, so I was just looking at it from kind of how it could be maybe improved. The word reasonable was used, reasonable use, what is that? And then reasonable alternative, what is that? And then also, what does feasible mean? And by the time I was done, I deleted that section with the word feasible in it. And then I combined the chunk on historic and significant was very similar. So I combined them and then had a little breakout for the historic part. It was just a way to shorten it. And so anyway, I didn't feel strongly about any of it, but those were just my observations. And then just a couple of little typos, just kind of nitpicky stuff. There was a mention in the disease and hazardous one about any structure that requires a building permit or to any enclosed area. So is a screen porch enclosed? Or is a covered porch enclosed? I don't know. So that was just a
Well, that's a good question. You asked about a deck, and I do think maybe we don't.
Like it was me.
It says a
in-
porch,
Yeah, you
which
reference
is
it in.
fine if the porch is part of the house,
It's
or if it's a freestanding structure, or if it's anchored into the house, or.
Well, you build them differently.
Mhm.
A deck could have isolated footings,
Mine did.
and they often drip through.
But
So,
it was me. I would tell the deck people a deck can be rearranged around a tree,
Right.
probably pretty
Right.
nicely. So,
and there are plenty of examples in Wild Dunes
Yeah,
where they've
yeah.
done that too.
but that was just a question. And screen porches. And there was one section I just highlighted. I just didn't know what the difference was. But then the big red chunks was the combination or combining the two, consolidating the two, the historic and significant into one section was all that was.
Yeah, I will tell you the fact that the wording on significant and historic is as similar as it is, has been a bit problematic. And I can tell you from an interpretation standpoint, they are pretty wildly different. Like the idea that you have to show proof that you can't reasonably use the property. We have internally interpreted reasonable use as, and I think we've gone so far as to say, a 1,200 square foot footprint with dimensions, and I think we've landed on about 15 feet wide. At least you can always build at least a 15-foot wide, but we have required people to do an L shape that gets 1,500 square feet of livable space, knowing that could be duplicated on 2 levels, get you kind of a 3,000 square foot house. So we interpret it, I would say, very tightly and very black and white, although it's not in the code.
But if it was me, I'd say reasonable would be, it's too expensive. Unreasonable would be the cost.
To do
I would
an
argue,
L-shaped
I
house.
don't want an L-shaped house. I want So anyway, but you might want the word reasonable just so you have wiggle room. But I don't know if you're trying to get the
You mean
zoning
reasonable?
administrator out of the boiling water or what? I don't know.
Sorry, did I just miss something?
Say it again.
You said you want the word reasonable?
I don't know. Do you? I mean, it was a choice, and some people might like to have the word to give you some wiggle room
It gives you opportunity for design.
and a creative solution.
So there was a lot in Mount Pleasant we designed that loaded with oak trees, mostly on the roadside, but a long rectangular lot. And in the town of Mount Pleasant, your front yard is always the narrow side. So the front yard was not even on the street. But anyhow, so the setbacks were all misconstrued. We designed a house that didn't affect the ground area so that water could permeate to the roots. So we weren't disrupting the roots. We cantilevered a porch so that it would also clear the canopy overhead. And Eddie Bernard in the town of Mount Pleasant just ate it up. Of course,
They liked it.
Yeah, and we were asking for variances, which is a whole nother thing, which, if you can't make this work with the
Duet.
zoning and
Yeah.
duet, then you always have the opportunity to waste $200. You try to get a zoning variance, but
Well, or
You know,
appeal, you probably would appeal, like, hey, this is reasonable. The
But-
code says reasonable.
Sure.
Duet's
And I
found
would
it's
think-
unreasonable.
what I learned last time I went to a board of zoning appeals in Mount Pleasant, it was all about trees and tree removal, is definitely, nobody had an arborist there. Nobody had a landscape plan or landscaper there. And those are absolute,
They had nothing to lose.
yeah,
They're
but,
like-
and so none of them got approved,
They got rejected. Yeah.
because it's all hearsay. Oh, a tree looks old, it's in bad shape. Well, it's one thing for me to say a tree looks like it's in bad shape. It's another for an arborist to say a tree's in bad shape. And those are just minimum, tools that you could use to negotiate a reasonable solution. That's why, I kind of do like reasonable.
Yeah.
Because it does offer, it's not black and white. So it doesn't force you to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. It allows you to discuss with the city's staff what could be reasonable.
Yeah, and I think to further that point, our code very much, you have to start with a tree survey. Like that's the starting point of any conversation. Or kind of, there was a time when it would be like an X here and no real distances, so tree survey identifying the location, the size, the species. That's a starting point. Didn't talk about the fact that there is a tree preservation zone that is equal to 6 inches away from the tree for every inch in diameter of the tree. So 24-inch tree, you have to stay 12 feet away. Well,
From the trunk.
from the trunk, you have to stay 12 feet away if you want to go at it without an arborist. So if you stay more than 12, so if you're well away from a tree and you could do your work without cutting a major pruning more than the ANSI A300 standards allow, you can go at it yourself. If you look at it, an arborist looks at it and says, okay, the entire canopy is going that way. It's safe and reasonable for you to build closer than 12 feet in this situation. We will give you a tree preservation plan to submit to the city for review that allows you to go to 8 feet based on, and then they come up with a plan of how to protect it, how to treat that tree, and how to ensure that the tree survives if you get inside of that tree preservation zone. So all that to say, I don't think, it's very rare that a whole house gets built without an arborist involved. Never would get built without a tree survey being kind of the starting point of the permitting. But they almost always have an arborist involved because, they're small lots. There's a lot of trees generally on them. And an arborist is kind of looking into how you could build adjacent to trees and not impact the trees. So I do think it's good in that respect that it has professionals very much dialed into a project.
And the fact that no one could afford, no normal person could afford the ANSI regulation or whichever
I mean, it's probably
regulation.
$20. I don't even know. It's just a
But,
hassle.
but still, most people, shouldn't be cutting limbs off a tree anyway. Not because it's unsafe, but because they're probably going to do it improperly.
That would be me.
Well, that would be me too. I have a pole saw.
But by the time I saw that, that would be done.
Yeah.
I would have finished just mutilating that tree.
So I will tell you, tree pruning has come to a head in one occasion. We had a tree that almost entirely went across a property line, and they had a branch that was on the trunk. So the trunk and a branch were on the one property owner's lot. The entire rest of the canopy was on the neighbor's lot. And they came in and they cut the entire canopy out minus one twig. So it kind of left the trunk and a twig. That person was found in violation of the ANSI A300. It's kind of no debate that it was improperly pruned. That resulted in a ticket. It's only ever happened once.
And that's helpful. It gives you got something credible to.
Yeah, and I don't know that we could have, I don't know. There would have been some gray area had we not had a pruning standard kind of to relate to, but multiple tree experts looked at it and said, yeah, that's not a proper pruning. The other time it always comes up is the power line pruning, and people will dig into our code and they'll say, there's no way this is compliant with our local rules. If you look into the ANSI A300 standards, it basically carves out kind of specialty pruning for things like safety of utility
They
lines.
exempt or they have some.
They do, it does address them, but they're pretty much exempt. It's close to being, as close to being exempt as you can. And then I think our code even actually,
Yeah.
I think it actually exempts it even, but it is compliant with the ANSI A300. But I think our code also exempts it. So on multiple accounts, they're allowed to prune those power lines.
I went through what was highlighted in here, and
That's Bill's.
interchangeably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, there's some interesting back and forth. Cutting is used, the word cut or cutting like 7 times all through the document, but not consistently. Remove, removal, removed is in there some 30 sometimes, predominantly after, usually it's right after cutting. And then pruning is a couple of times, but trimming is actually 1 time and not pruning. And it's like, why? Yeah. So just
Some consistency.
wordsmithing for.
Yeah.
I think there is, somebody thinks there's a difference between cutting and pruning. Like cutting, I think, is
Well, there is.
removing an entire.
Well,
Right.
and I was gonna suggest that cutting be removed and because normally after cut or cutting, it says remove or removed or removal.
Right.
So just
So-
Cutting is a
Like you're cutting
permanent.
down to, in order to remove it.
Cutting is a permanent. Pruning is a healthy act. That's the big
Well,
According to
yeah.
what I found online here, trimming is.
Tim, you talking to the microphone?
Trimming is mostly for aesthetics.
Yeah.
Trimming up a hedge and so forth like that. When you cut a tree, it's more storm damage or death, tree death or major trunk damage, root systems threatened. And,
But you're cutting it down, taking
You're
it.
removing.
right, or you're removing large portions of it. And then pruning is more of a health standard. You're taking away diseased limbs or broken limbs or something to make the tree more healthy. So they break it down to 3 different ways like that.
So what, I mean, I guess my mind goes to like the people who carve faces into trees.
That's
Like-
cutting.
That's
would be-
cutting.
That would be, cutting in the tree.
Is that etching? Or is that,
Or is that
And,
trimming?
and that's not pruning, you're not removing it, you're not, or just taking a gouge out of the tree, I mean, I guess I've always thought that's what, you can't just kind of willy-nilly go practice with your chainsaw and take out a little sliver here and there, and somebody might say, I'm not pruning it, I'm not removing it, I'm doctoring it up,
Just
and
hurting it.
I'm just kind of hurting it. So I've always thought that's why cutting was in there.
yeah, the other thing about pruning I looked up is that you're removing less than 25% of the canopy. So it was very specific on
Yeah,
the,
I think pruning's pretty, people understand that, but I didn't know what the difference, I didn't know what cutting, I didn't know what the difference was. Or is it cutting removal?
what was one?
Well, if you're, to me, if you're, not to Douglas's point, but to Bill's point, if you're cutting, you're removing. And so it should be, you know, if
Two-step
we're gonna
process.
use
Right.
it,
Cut and
then
remove.
it cut and remove, cut or remove. I mean,
So
which is, it is in here a couple of times, but
So you just
it's
remove the
not
word cut.
consistent.
We
That's
can
what
cut
I'm
the word
thinking.
cut.
We can cut it.
And leave remove.
Yeah.
Or
And-
you can put
right.
them together like salt and pepper, cut and
Or
remove.
remove, cut with carve.
Mhm.
Remove it however you want.
No carving
No
of
carving of
trees.
No totem, live totem building.
Well, pruning is more proactive.
Right,
Yeah.
Cutting is reactive.
right. Yeah.
But I also wonder if I'm missing something too, so.
I have had
I couldn't figure it out. That's
arborists come and prune my trees. My insurance company required it on numerous locations here on the island because of the touching the roof and things like that. So that was, again, kind of a safety thing. And I've asked them, what can you safely take out? And on it's different, I gather, for the canopy flow coverage, I mean, on different trees, significant versus historic. But I think he's told me in no uncertain terms, not more than 40% can safely be removed of these historic trees. Some of the other trees, I think they bounce back a little quicker.
But I think structurally, from what I've been told, if your tree's growing like that and it's well-rounded, if you take 40% of this off, you're gonna have an unbalanced tree that could then fall.
Mhm.
So it's, that's why there are rules and not just
Yeah.
people can, because I've heard plenty of other people say, well, if I could take off 25% of my tree this year, then next year I could take another 25.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
think
don't think it's meant that way. Yeah.
I have actually heard from an arborist that it is meant that way, that
Yeah.
like you can incrementally train it back and it's intentionally like you do it, give it a year, it heals, then you do it. And there was one that actually they were doing that to, and then they ended up moving it. So they had kind of taken a couple of years and started this kind of training thing, and then they ultimately moved it.
So it just occurred to me, the word cut might be in there because I could cut the tree down, and just leave it in my yard. So I didn't remove it, I just laid it down.
Yeah.
Or chopped it up
Yeah.
into logs or whatever. Or mulched it. Still there.
But pruning the tree also gets rid of the sail effect that we saw during Hugo, where it just tumbled the tree
Less
down.
surface area.
Yeah.
So that it's healthy for the tree to go in there and take out some of that dead wood and some of the unhealthy branches. So the tree can thrive a little better.
All right, I think I've talked myself into just leaving and cutting in there. I just didn't know what it meant.
Well, there are instances where it simply says cut and it's not associated with remove. So I don't understand.
Cut or remove.
Yeah.
Cut or remove, cut or remove.
I
I guess for
know,
my clarification, is a live oak, is that the holy grail? I mean, no one really touches the whole
It
live oak.
Our ordinance definitely gives preference to live oaks. It becomes historic. The only actual difference is it is given historic status at 16 inches where the others are given historic status at 24 inches. So we do have, and we interpret the protection of a historic tree much more rigidly than we do significant tree.
And on page 2, it talks of cutting of a tree for all purposes of this article. It's
I just saw
referencing
that.
back to the ANSI 2000. So it doesn't say anything
It
about
says pruning
removal.
shall be deemed to be the cutting of a tree for all purposes of this article. What does that mean?
Well, so that gets, my example, I think it says that is an improper, if somebody just took a chainsaw and was
Mhm.
testing its motor, put a big gouge into it, it would be deemed a prune, and a prune that's probably not in accordance with the ANSI A300 standard, is what I would. so
Versus
I'd-
removing.
Yeah. That'd be an improper prune, I think.
That's section G of,
I mean, oh, anything done not according is
Not
considered
according
cutting. Okay. That's good.
What does the group think about, and there was a time when we protected pine trees. I have always felt like and we actually had, and if the group wanted, we could ask to do it again, but we had the Clemson, the kind of state arborist from the Clemson Arboricultural Society come and talk to the Planning Commission about this thing. And there was a lot of kind of consternation around protecting pine trees. At the time, we did protect pine trees, but I think they did so much damage in Hurricane Hugo that they really were seen as a liability. I think, winds came through, and if you had 10 trees and 5 were one species and 5 were pines, all 5 of the pines would have been broken and the other species would have not been broken. So kind of,
Is it the root ball, small root ball?
I think they just
They
break,
snap.
they snap.
They snap.
Yeah, that's what
Because of the
Tall and
tap
skinny.
root so deep,
Uh-huh.
they don't tip over like oaks do.
Okay.
They
Right.
just snap like a whip.
So they really kind of played havoc on the island after Hugo. So there was an intentional, and that is, I guess that's one that a question we get is there will be these monstrous pine trees that by every account is healthy and they're just removing them. We occasionally will get the question about, isn't that protected? And we just say, no, it's not. There is zero protection given to that. And I will say my recollection of the Clemson arborist was, I get it. You're not wrong. They are kind of a less wind tolerant species. But of course, he talked about all the benefits also of a pine tree. So he was a little bit of I would say, kind of indifferent, but understood the rationale of removing them. So eventually that led to the Planning Commission recommending that they be taken out and council approving them becoming unprotected. And I asked this question because I think that was specifically the question in the matrix was consider protecting pines,
And wax myrtles.
myrtles.
I think not protecting pines, I think would be consistent with the city's resilience goals. Like, we would be less likely to lose power as
Right.
often, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with the pines. But the wax myrtles, they hold the dunes together, and I imagine.
They do. They're kind of a hybrid tree bush.
Yeah.
And they,
So I was involved with some disaster relief assistance for Hurricane Ian in Florida. And we assessed all the structures for safety and whatnot. And every oceanfront property that did not have vegetation in front of it got destroyed, literally destroyed. And the ones with 20 feet of wax myrtles or bushes or whatever survived. That makes so much difference. That vegetation in front of a structure matters. So if that's a wax myrtle, I'm all for wax myrtles.
well, DNR classifies it as a tree or a small tree or shrub.
Is that what's in the dunes?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
There are a
It could
few,
be.
yeah,
It
but
could
it's
be.
not a.
Sea
not
oaks
over-
are, yeah.
Yeah.
It might be around the marsh edge. Marsh edge.
I think that's so. I think that accreted land isn't that like a myrtle? Those are all wax myrtles, right? And that
Yes.
accreted land on
A
Sullivan,
lot of it.
that's. So I think it's not uncommon. I mean, I think that is typically it's a wax myrtle out on that.
I would
Kind of
protect it.
ocean front.
Anything on the ocean front, I would protect it.
And I guess what's happened, we've had owners, particularly on Palm Boulevard, Ocean Boulevard, hasn't grown up yet enough out in front of the homes, but Palm, where they've taken out everything right up to the primary dune.
Yeah.
And that's,
So in those
To do putting their putting green.
Yeah, those, we do get questions about that kind of clear cutting up to, and just for this group's awareness, we allow the city's code allows any kind of removal that's consistent with the tree regulations. So less than 8-inch trunk can be removed up to the state's jurisdictional line, which on those Palm Boulevard lots, it's pretty far out there. But once you get kind of to the house side of the dune system, that line picks up and there is protection from that line seaward. So there's an area there, and it's not an insignificant area between the back of the house and where the state's jurisdiction begins that people are allowed to kind of remove. But from that point out over the dunes is protected.
But unless you take the wax myrtles out, they're going to grow back. I mean, if you just cut them down, they will grow again.
They're
How quick
nasty.
are they?
Nasty.
Very
Are they?
quick.
Okay.
I hate them,
Yeah, I do too. They're weeds.
Okay.
Absolutely.
but they are ground cover. And,
A lot of people like them. It's habitat for birds and
Yeah.
it's seed.
But that's why,
Coyotes.
that might be why we have dunes, because they grow.
But- and I'm thinking on my side of Palm Boulevard at 42nd, the secondary dune. So there's the primary dune out by the shoreline. And there might still even be maybe some remnants of sand fence back there, but
Yeah.
the next set of dunes closer to the house do have wax myrtles and stuff. And that's where they put the coyote traps a couple of weeks ago. So things do live there, and they do obviously keep erosion. I mean, I remember back in the day, you would donate your Christmas tree at the end of the season to the dune and
So
you know, let nature take its place.
Take them all out,
Yeah.
stake them up. And, there's still a couple.
Amy, would I
float out.
would I have the ability to show my screen on these TVs?
I've got internet.
Oh, did he come back up?
Well,
it's
I think it's on the hotspot, or is it on the Wi-Fi?
I didn't have Wi-Fi, now I do.
Okay.
Oh, you had the IFE?
I did too.
Yeah, it's
I
connected.
have
Yeah.
DSS.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I do too. I didn't look at it, but I do too.
It went out earlier, so we're just using the.
Okay.
Google's hotspot.
You are.
Yeah, so that's just for kind of reference. That is the,
Look at that.
that's those lines, the blue lines and the red lines are the
What street is that?
jurisdictional. This is Palm Boulevard.
But what cross street is?
Oh, and they don't put
Oh,
the
the big green
Second
spot
we could
that's
tell.
around.
42nd.
Yeah.
And so, oh, I went the wrong way. So you can see these folks kind of clear right up to that jurisdictional line and then stop. So all of this would be protected from anything being cut. And then as you work your way towards 21st Avenue, you pick up at like this house has a tremendous amount of space between the back of their house and that jurisdictional line.
Is that 23rd?
Close.
Where's the other?
Oh, no, it's like.
No, 'cause
Oh, there's
the
20,
rack.
yeah, Rex 28. So
That's
yeah,
gonna
it gets to
be
be, these yards, you can see it's,
And look how skinny those dunes are.
Yeah.
And then you think, I don't know what about your house, but is one set of dunes because of renourishment?
So is that
Oh,
20?
all the
25th
beaches.
to
are
Washington?
25th.
Well,
So at 42nd, there used to be rock revetments when I
Oh,
bought my
really?
property,
Oh, wow.
or groin, I should say. And it's still there, but I've not seen it in 15 years.
Oh.
It's buried by sand from,
Yeah, you
I don't
couldn't-
know how many myrtles
You
are
didn't have a dry
natural.
beach out there at high tide
No.
for many years.
this,
Do you all have an opinion on, is that a heavily myrtle? I guess would this be myrtles?
those
I
look
think
like
so,
myrtles,
yeah,
yeah.
probably.
My street, we walk through them and it holds the place together. I mean,
And I know Sullivan's, we kind of talked about.
Right.
But that's, we do get questions about that, just.
So many of
So-
those they own that land out front. They
So
can't
let's go look
build.
at, go look at Reddy's house. I mean, seriously, that whole stretch probably has no wax myrtles.
Yeah, so
It's getting hammered.
this,
Yeah.
that's right.
It did,
How did that came? It did. It came
It
from.
did. They had-
They have no protection.
but they had it.
They had it, yeah.
And what happened to it?
They
Well,
were right.
Irma.
Oh, it got washed away.
Yeah, this,
That started back in 2016.
Mhm.
They had a ton of beach
So
out
you
there.
could,
Yeah.
have you ever gone back in time on Google?
The time-
To see
the time-
Yeah, you don't have to do that, but it's cool to see it, how it transforms over time.
I have a
actually,
black and
this
white
might do it.
picture from,
This
I
might-
think, 1928, where the beach is where Ocean Boulevard is.
There you go.
Like the dunes.
There's, no, the beach, the
Hey,
high
they got it.
water
What
mark
year
is
was
up against,
What year?
like 1928.
Sandy,
Yeah,
you
go back
date
to
yourself.
2000 or something.
So we're getting
Stop
off from
it.
so there's 2020. Yeah. It's
On the
gonna
corner, they had a bunch. Anyway, I guess I would just encourage as much
Yeah.
stuff on the ocean front as possible.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that was the having fun. You're
All
going
right,
back a
let's-
little
Here's
further.
that.
That's 2006. Yeah, it was way out.
Mhm.
Everybody feels safe.
89, back when there was one house.
Yeah. Yeah. I do, I guess I would wonder about if, and I don't know if there's consensus on protecting myrtles. But to Ron's point, I guess I would think that they're considered, I think a lot of people consider them kind of a weed and not something they want in their yard. And maybe what Bill is suggesting is more of a beach
Right.
buffer type thing.
Well, if it's not on your property and it's regulated.
Well, it is on your property, but it is regulated. It is regulated by the state. I would say that the state has,
State would supersede.
Yeah. Let it stay.
it's not,
Can you prune? Can I, if I was oceanfront, could I prune in OCRM
no.
jurisdiction? I can't prune. I
So that's why those lines, when we were looking at,
can cut a path.
you can actually cut a path on the beach. We had to come up with a memorandum of understanding when you could, because and it has to be hand tools. It has to be, there is a process to cut because we've had this when we go to reconstitute a path, because it's meandered off of the strip where it should be, and we got in trouble for just putting a new path in. Yeah, straightening it out.
So we're gonna leave the word cut in the ordinance.
Well,
I think so.
are we?
Well, it was just confusing.
So I think, from my perspective, and when we can go whatever way you would like, I think the task was to kind of look at a high level as to whether or not it's providing the level of protection that it should or fits, specifically these kind of categories of trees that are left out, pines, wax myrtles. There is a kind of overarching desire to recodify the city's code, go through wordsmithing, have a legal review, have an update. So I would say if generally the planning commission is agreeable to the policy, that we don't get into the kind of wordsmithing
Right.
until we're doing a full recodification, and that you will be involved with, and that's where you would get into the real kind of detail of the wordsmith.
If the building department and your folks aren't seeing anything, I don't think it's necessary to do anything with it.
Yeah,
We don't have an
Just,
overwhelming.
some of the things that
problem.
had come up,
It ain't moving.
David Cohen spoke to me at least about trying to increase the tree protection zone. And he was referring to the county, and I think even Mount Pleasant, that instead of 6 inches per inch of caliper for a radius, he wanted 12 inches per inch. So a 24-inch tree would have a 48-foot tree
He wanted
protection.
it bigger.
He wanted it
Even bigger.
Yes.
And my concern with that is that the average lot on the Isle of Palms is about 100 by
Two
100.
of those, yeah.
So that's a quarter of your lot that,
Push
is
structure.
making it to.
well, remember
and-
though,
and neither the county or Mount Pleasant enforce their ordinance like that. They do like we do.
so people kind of think that it's a death sentence to build into a tree protection zone. From my perspective, it's not a very heavy lift. It just requires that you engage an arborist. Arborist shows up, analyzes the situation, and just kind of signs off. So I guess I would classify that request as not a heavy lift, but also probably not, I don't know that it would change a tremendous amount.
Right.
Because you
It
can
probably-
build into a tree
you can build into
preservation.
it.
I don't know of anybody who built in that example, 12 feet off, and there was problems generated by that. Where if they wanted to build at 12 feet, they still would be allowed to build that close. It's just they would have had an arborist involved. And I think that was borrowed from the town of Mount Pleasant, I
It
thought.
was.
And maybe they increased
But
it after we
they
did it.
might have, but they're not enforcing.
Hmm.
And that's language, and that's, most people don't really read well.
You signed or you did.
Yes, yeah.
Check here.
All right, I'm not hearing I think I'm,
I think I agree with you.
Leave it.
It's not broken.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really not.
All
It
my stuff
was,
was just codification type things.
yeah.
it was pretty well researched when it was put together.
Yeah, it definitely evolved. I mean,
Took some time.
like I said, there was a period of probably 10 years where it was getting reviewed, updated, like every other year or so. So I think it evolved to a pretty
Yeah.
refined level, and I think it's been
There was
served.
one section that felt really weird. It felt like Wild Dunes wrote it kind of thing.
Well, I would believe that it became kind of disjointed because it was amended so many times. That probably could be a factor of that. All right, so based on that, if we go to the matrix, your matrix, I will plan on changing one of
Yes.
your
Back to green.
orange tabs to green on the tree ordinance.
We are making progress.
And it,
Of course, I have the
Yeah,
black and white
seems
version.
appropriate. Yeah, 151.
Thank you.
151 is that's the matrix number. Oh, yeah, 151. Yep. So that leaves, you have 5. And we're getting down to the kind of, and not that, because they're in the matrix does not necessarily mean something has to be done. It's 5. One of them is, and I don't know that we've talked about this for a while. I don't think the city can regulate. If you look at 251, and this has been in my court, and I just haven't sent the email, but I do not believe that the city can regulate structures at the end of docks. I think that is a place where the state has been given that authority. And if the state has been given that authority, we generally cannot also regulate something that's already regulated by the state. So I think that's something we can't do, but I definitely need to,
So you don't need a building permit to build a man cave out there?
no, we don't permit it. We don't, if we send you to BCM and we tell you need to produce your permit from BCM, but if we say that's in their regulatory jurisdiction and we don't, and I don't think we even can, but I do need to verify that. And I will.
Yeah, I had a concern umpteen years ago, quite literally, I've been around here that long, about a Seattle type thing happening on our
Like a houseboat?
houseboats or series of.
Yeah.
And, I brought it up to Thomas way back then and, it's not our jurisdiction and hasn't really happened in 15 years. Really don't think it would, but that's what I was trying to avoid.
Well, there's
Sounds like
state
Hewlett Logan
statute
out
on
there.
that.
Yeah, I don't think the state statute would allow it.
In fact, they made,
Have y'all seen or heard about the lifeboat that's over on Goat Island? That's an Airbnb? That orange lifeboat?
Oh, they,
Oh,
it's
no.
it's an Airbnb.
has he finished it? I heard he
I
was
heard, yeah.
working on it.
Or, yeah, it's going to be an Airbnb. Like you can Airbnb boat, yeah.
I just think of, good luck getting out there to the grocery store if you're flying into town.
And that's why you don't
Drive your
live on Goat Island or Gunwale.
Like an RV.
Right, it is.
They had short-term vacation rentals on boats down at the marina.
Yep.
Over time.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
They have a pump out there. I mean, it's all Coast Guard inspected for occupancy and whatever the Coast Guard inspects for.
Wow.
Safety and stuff. Wasn't a big hit. It's very noisy. People didn't like it.
Oh, really?
It's like staying on the beach with the waves breaking underneath your building somewhere north of here. The guests would call and complain, it's too loud.
Can you turn down the ocean?
Well, any noise close to the water. Like I know if I'm in Wild Dunes and I'll take a moment and I'll hear something. I'm like, is that from the marsh? No, it's Islander 71, but just how it travels is. I'll take the waves flopping under the place first.
Absolutely.
So what else is on our agenda, Brian?
That was it.
Sit pat with the matrix for the time being. I'll check in. I've got two. I have actually 3 of the 5. So let me, one is kind of clarification. Policies,
Yeah, I thought,
that's one that was in the planning. That's in the comp plan. Did we agree to delete that?
I thought the 269, the bottom one here?
Are we supposed to be green there? Done? Nothing to do?
Yeah, I mean,
That's already,
Do you have that green or yellow?
it's still yellow, but
I thought we talked, I know I talked about it.
Well, let's change it then if you talked about it.
And, well, and I was
We did
thinking
talk
that
about
our
that.
zoning does what this
Take
is
care of it.
suggesting.
Okay, yeah.
My-
And maybe
discussed
it
that.
was that the fact that it's in the comp plan
no.
as a strategy that maybe the thought was go ahead and take it out of the comprehensive plan because it's done. Maybe that's the takeaway. We feel this is done. Let's consider removing it from the comp plan as a settled
Mhm.
piece of business. So that takes you down to,
So I think if our zoning map is pretty tight.
Mhm.
Well, and as we bump into things, the city typically deals with it through this.
well, but remember this is talking about
Yeah,
which use public improvements to improve commercial development. So it's not talking about not allowing somebody else to do something. It is make our public improvements mitigate adverse impacts of commercial development on residential properties. So it's us actually physically building something.
The example, like I used that we talked about in November, was Sweetgrass Inn, noise complaints from all the pool and everything else. And would the city come in and build
Build a
a
wall.
noise wall
Mhm.
to, help out the residents who live on the other side of that? Because that was the big complaint, right? Was
And
noise.
that probably is about the time, the genesis of this strategy.
Right.
So maybe
So
we
that's-
just
that's a
leave it
good
in
example.
as it's a good part of the comprehensive plan. When it comes up, it should be supported.
Mhm.
I've heard some people complaining about the beach renourishment impacting private properties for access. Is that can that be read into that section?
Wait, say that again? Impacting properties or,
For access to get,
okay.
the
What's usually
vehicles.
10?
you can't walk where the dump trucks are or the
I
bulldozers.
don't really know. I'm trying to remember
It's
who
temporary.
said that.
If there's no beach, you can't walk there anyway.
Right.
When Wild Dunes did their last one that went down to 57th Street?
Right.
They had the beach blocked off.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how they got to the beach. Certainly on Breach Inlet, you're right there with the parking lot.
Well, they kind of staged sections.
Right.
Yeah, they kind
Mhm.
of cordon
And
off like a
certainly-
football field.
So
At a
many
time.
of the access, 25th, 42nd, those accesses are wide enough. You can get anything down. So I really don't know.
But this is specifically to mitigate impacts of commercial development.
Right. Not governmental.
Yeah, not, so your comment would be if it was happening in front of, well, I don't know. It is aimed at commercial development.
You're not going to allow the windjammer to move over into the next lot over on this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
type
or
thing.
to Rich's point, if they're doing a series that's like spend public resources to kind of minimize the negative impacts of the windjammer.
Mhm.
Islander 71, create vegetative buffers, support the kind of use of things that would. Oh, and maybe we could have had the Morgan Creek Grill
Mhm.
uh,
The
noise issues
with the
at
bands.
the Marina restaurant. Could have been, that might have been the issue that
Yeah.
led that to getting into the comprehensive plan. So it sounds like
Yeah,
it's not a
that's-
bad thing to have there, and kind of generally, if there is a adverse impact, that it would be reasonable for the city to spend public funds to mitigate that. So maybe I turn that to green and just say we're
Yeah.
supportive.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly hope the commercial development, when it was permitted, it was considered, but if we missed it, or it got missed.
Yeah.
in the whole
Well,
thing.
like,
And I
I
think-
think in
There
the
was a
same
lot.
venue with Sweetgrass, the Windjammer putting their outside venue out there for the concerts
Mhm.
and how everybody can work together. to-
Yeah.
But as a taxpayer,
Mitigate
why
that.
should I have to pay for a business to fix their problem? I mean, there will be people like that, not me particularly, but people will say that.
Yeah.
That's not my problem. Y'all should make the business pay for that sound wall or whatever.
And they do. Other than the time employees spend
Well, Yeah.
working with everybody.
Douglas jogged my memory. I think it was more of the jet ski business.
Uh,
And the neighbors in Intercoastal Court
Could also be.
who specifically were complaining because they, early in the morning start their jet skis up and clean them out. And he was quite vocal.
But what about which use public improvements to
Oh,
prevent or mitigate adverse impacts?
that
So what would be the public improvement?
the city could have planted plantings adjacent to the fence, which the fence generally would have been your buffer. But,
Yeah.
You could have planted 10 feet of wax myrtles.
But would that stop sound? No.
Not really.
All right.
But I
Sounds
think
like you're
that's
generally
what we think.
supportive of the notion
Yeah.
if the need,
If the need, yeah.
need work.
I think when it's recognized that I know that we have in the past dealt with some noise issues and some site issues and adjusted accordingly. Again, I kind of defer to our zoning takes care of 99%, and then there's that, the Sweetgrass Inn, I don't know what.
Well, and
I mean, that was.
that's relying on the noise ordinance to deal with it, not
It
really
is.
a physically built thing
Yeah.
of the zoning. It's
And they fall within some of those,
Mhm.
do not make noise after 10 o'clock
Right.
and all the whatever they have up there.
Or just point your speakers inward.
Yeah, that too.
But anyway,
So. I'm all for turning it green.
all right. We're
I
going to
think
turn it
we're,
green.
think the city's on.
Turn 2 of your 6 green. Next month is your legal briefing.
Oh, boy.
I think, is that right?
Yes, March 11th, we'll do that first.
And that will probably be the bulk of the.
What is that?
That's an annual, and I don't know that we do it every year. Maybe it's every other year.
Yeah.
We have the city attorney come in to talk to you all and the Board of Zoning Appeals. Sometimes at the same.
That's what we're trying to do is get everybody from BOZA to come in.
To just kind of
Listen
talk
to you
through do's and don'ts of being a planning commissioner or Board of Zoning Appeals member, ex parte communication, Freedom of Information Act. Don't
Delete your text.
just kind of do's and don'ts.
Do or don't?
Don't meet outside of here and discuss people's.
Oh, there's quorum
Trying
for
to.
this?
Yes.
Quorum state, yeah.
Oh, really?
Try not to
All of
hang
it.
out at the bar and talk with everybody that's there.
Okay. I need my orientation.
And then, yeah,
Buying
discuss issues.
everybody drinks.
Mhm. We
So
talked
that'll be
about
next
other
month.
things.
Yeah. I didn't
California.
realize
All right. Thank you all.
Move to adjourn.
have a movement. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
You got a second before.
All those in favor say aye.
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 That's unanimous.
You didn't like my movement?